letter from the Gantry.
Well, thanks, Neil. Our special guest, Tom Kearney, was very much to the fore the last time I was on the Gantry at Craven Cottage. It was a Premier League game against Wolves, which Fulham won 3-2, an evening of 3 penalties, 2 of them for Fulham, one of them when Tom was clipped by Nelson Semedo. But my first Fulham match as a commentator made the national news. Not, I can assure you, down to any wise words from me. It was Fulham away to Southampton, October 1976, a second division game, but full of celebrities. And the great George Best was sent off in a 4-1 defeat. Dismissals were rare back then, but despite his equally famous teammate Bobby Moore pleading his case to the referee, George had to go. My own history with the club goes way back even further, to 1958. Woking, on their way to winning the FA Amateur Cup in front of 71,000 at Wembley, played the semi-final against Barnet on neutral territory at the Cottage. I was a nervous school kid in a 20,000 plus crowd. Woking rather escaped with a replay after a nervy 1-1 draw and booked their place in the final with a 3-2 win at Brentford's old ground, Griffin Park, a week later. One of the Woking scorers in that game and subsequently at Wembley was snapped up by Fulham a year later. His name, Reg Stratton, the great-uncle of former England midfield man Tom Cleverley, who's now impressing as Watford's manager. I've mentioned before on this platform that I was privileged to travel on the Fulham team coach for their only FA Cup final in 1975 to do live interviews with the players on the road to Wembley. I earned the job by being in the right place at the right time for their semi-final replay against Birmingham City in Manchester. No live coverage in those days, just a couple of cameras, and it seemed a waste of even those facilities when it was 0-0 into the dying seconds of extra time and a second replay looming large. But then striker John Mitchell poached the goal that took the then second division club to the final. We captured all their post-match joy, but the interview I will never forget on that evening was with a loser on the night. Gordon Taylor, tearfully, fronted up for Birmingham, then a top division club, in the utter dismay of defeat. The same Gordon Taylor who would go on to serve the PFA, the Players' Union, as their chief executive for some 40 years. The following season, I actually got onto the Craven Cottage pitch as part of the setup for a television programme which also ran for decades, This Is Your Life. Each show reunited a famous face with family and friends, but the subject was kept in the dark until the very last, and the element of surprise at the beginning was the real hook of the programme. I was recruited to go onto the pitch, supposedly to interview Alan Mullery during a specially arranged match against a local school team. Alan was back at Fulham after a very successful sortie across London with Spurs, which included winning 35 England caps. Behind me, hidden by the portable camera, a couple of technicians and myself, was the programme's host, Eamon Andrews. At exactly the right moment, Eamon sprang out and said, "Alan Mullery, this is your life." Muller's, usually a constant chatterbox, was dumbstruck. Fulham are renowned for their hospitality, as we at the Joy of Football have experienced so very recently. In my non-league coaching career at several clubs, we've been grateful to them for providing excellent opposition in money-spinning pre-season fixtures. Back in 2006 at Walton and Hersham, we made the mistake of beating a Fulham 11 coached by Billy McKinlay, the very competitive former Scotland international. 2 years later at Kingstonian, we asked Billy for the favour of another friendly. He turned up with 6 internationals, including Clint Dempsey, and beat us 8-0. He wasn't about to make the same mistake again. Chris Smalling, later of Manchester United and England, made his Fulham debut in one such fixture. Dan Burns, still going strong at Newcastle, was another I got an early sighting of in similar Fulham circumstances. Now, Fulham are London's oldest professional football club, and they've been playing at the Cottage since 1896, with the exception of 2 seasons, 2002 to 2004, when they ground shared, you might remember, with Queen's Park Rangers, while their own home was being upgraded. It was from that gantry that I called out one of the club's greatest goalkeepers, Edwin van der Sar. The Dutch international gave the cameras an early taste of the risky footwork that is much more prevalent from keepers today, miscontrolling a back pass and then trying to beat Arsenal's Jose Antonio Reyes, who was left with a tap-in. It was the only goal of the game. All his own fault, was my unforgiving commentary appraisal. The commentary position is now in the state-of-the-art Riverside development, the very grand stand on the bank of the Thames, with a swimming pool at rooftop level. and from the television position, a wonderful view into London over the historic cottage and the Stevenage Road stand with its listed facade. There's nothing quite like it in English football, and there's nothing not to like about Fulham FC.